Hi there. Welcome to the Imperfect Prophet podcast for women who wonder. Frankly, as we go through life, I'm sure we wonder about a great deal. First as little kids, then as adolescents, then as young women, then as transitional women. What are we calling ourselves these days? And then you get to this point in life, or my point in life, when you're postmenopausal and wondering what's next. Wondering if the parade already passed you by. Join me, Wonder Wendy. I'm going to be your host as we talk about some of these unique challenges that face women today in a new millennium, going through menopause and trying to live a rich, full life. There might even be a few men and younger women that want to listen in too. That's okay. But there's a roller coaster and we're all on it. And I'm going to be your guide to help you figure out when you should close your eyes, when you should hang on, and maybe we'll explore some ideas for what works for you if it doesn't work for me, or vice versa. So join the conversation, pick up your favorite beverage, and we'll talk to you soon. Welcome to the Imperfect Prophet. Welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Prophet with me, your host, Wonder Wendy. I'm back out in the backyard again because it's a beautiful day today. And, you got to enjoy it when you got it. I hope you have your beverage, whatever it is, your time of day, your appropriate beverage, because it's always more convivial when we are sharing a beverage together. Cheers. So this week, I want to talk about the Golden Girls, gravity, and taking flight. Stick with me. We will get through these three topics today. So first of all, the Golden Girls. You know, that TV show debuted September 14th, 1985, which, you know what? I actually would have said it was during my high school years. So when I looked that up, I was kind of surprised. I'm not going to do that cruel thing of doing the math and telling you how long ago 1985 was, because we all know it was only like 20 years ago, right? Yeah. So anyway, 1985, Golden Girls debuts. It's a hit on television. We're all laughing. But we're laughing, well, if you're my age, you're laughing because these older women are having fun lives and they're sassy and they're brassy and they're classy, just like yours truly, and just like I want you to be. But these women were nowhere near as old, and I'm putting little air quotes on that, as we would have thought at that point in life when, I wasn't even 20 when this show debuted. So yeah, they seemed old to me. But if the truth be told, when that show debuted in 1985, Rue McClanahan was only 51 years old, young, 51 years young. And even Betty White and B. Arthur, were only 63, not even retirement age. And Estelle Getty, who played the mother figure for B. Arthur, she was 62. But she came in hair and makeup and got the job because they didn't know how old she actually was. So here she was playing mother to B. Arthur, who is 62 or 63, and Estelle Getty was only 62. So our perception of age, wow. And for those of you who, like me, remember B. Arthur in another TV show before Golden Girls, she was in Maude, and that was one my mom liked a lot. And that's because Maude was saying, well, actually, a lot of things you and I are talking about. She was talking about aging, and she was talking about menopause. And can you tell it's a windy day because my sign is flapping in the breeze? Anyway, B. Arthur had another show, Maude, in the 70s, that was talking about menopause and issues that faced so many of us now. But she was talking about it 50 years ago. How come we've been so slow to make progress and start having the medical research and help we need to truly understand the changes our bodies go through? What's that about? Good question, right? So anyway, Maude. Now, there were a lot of great one-liners that came out of that show. The one that stuck with me as a little kid, consider myself a little kid when I was watching that show. She talked about a negligee that had feathers all around the bottom of the hem, full-length negligee. Couldn't wear it because the feathers kept tickling her nose. Took me a lot of years to figure that joke out, but I did. But the line that my mom loved from that show was B. Arthur as Maud looking in the mirror and saying, "Oh Lord, that I could defy the law of gravity." And she was talking about what gravity does to our bodies as we age. But does it have to happen? Okay. So that's happening. Our bodies will sort of degrade if we're not taking care of them. So that discussion of gravity, going from Golden Girls to Maud, now we're going to gravity. Remember those astronauts who just came back from space after, they were supposed to be up for they were like Gilligan's Island. They were supposed to be up for a 3-hour tour and they ended up staying for years. No, they were supposed to be up for a few days and they ended up staying for most of a year. But they came back. And if you'll notice in the footage, when they first came back, they put them in wheelchairs. And these astronauts were doing physical training and work on the space station for that unexpected year stay. But when they came back, the power of the Earth's gravity was so great on their bodies, which were not accustomed to that gravity, that they needed to be put in a wheelchair. Oh my goodness. I'm going to have a little sip. And so gravity, it's a downer. It pulls things down. But by the same token, if you don't have gravity, your body isn't allowed to develop properly. So this is one of life's dynamic tensions, that something that can be a problem can also be a benefit. Hear that again. Something that could be viewed as a problem can also be a benefit. We have to work through things to get to the solutions. So what if we could take what we've learned, all those struggles, all those problems, all those adversities that we have to overcome just because life isn't always easy, is it? If we can take all those lessons and use them like weight training against gravity. You have to keep moving. You have to keep your body aligned. You have to keep working so that you know what you can do with your body and you work it to its best point. But same with the mind. All those struggles, all those things you had to work against or with are helping you develop to a new point, a new height of greatness. Now, I don't know if you've seen those memes that are out on social media. Yeah. And usually it's a couple real sassy broads smoking cigarettes because apparently the world believes everyone smoked cigarettes in the 80s. I didn't. I have recently discovered cigars, but that's another story. Yeah, we'll save that for another episode. Anyway, so you see these sassy broads with a bottle of whiskey and a cigarette in their mouth. They say, we're kids from the 80s. We can do things that nobody can do. We survived the mean streets without a cell phone, without a nav system, without our mommy and daddies helping, without a credit card. How did we survive the 80s? I'm honestly not entirely certain, but we did. And we have skills. And we are very talented women. We have everything we need. It's hard to remember that, especially when the world keeps telling us that we're less. That because we can't play with our cell phones in 16 seconds and produce a 2-hour movie. How do kids do that? I'm like, what? Is there really just an app for that? Is it that easy? I'm going to take another drink. Okay. But we do have skills. And if we apply those skills to mastering today's world, we are unstoppable. We really are. So I want you to not discount everything you've learned, to not discount who you are, the greatness that you have acquired by living this glorious life, by getting to this point in your life. Menopausal, perimenopausal, postmenopausal women are so far from done. We are, as a matter of fact, the most powerful thing in the universe. So this is a piece of paper, just a piece of paper. I used it to make my notes about the ages of the Golden Girls because I didn't want to get that wrong. It's actually a piece of scrap paper. I pulled out of the recycling bin because I am that environmental person. I really hate using a fresh piece of paper when I could use something that's already going to go into recycling, and it can still go into recycling when I'm done. Now, if I take this paper and make a really obnoxious sound crumpling it up, is it still a valuable piece of paper? What can I use it for? I could use it as a ball. If I had a cat here, I could throw this sucker and the cat would be entertained. The cat would chase it, bat it around, do whatever. If I wanted to flatten it, and so I could use the other side of the paper that's blank, which that's still a possibility. I could put it under a book and flatten it, but not like this. I can't just put the book on this wadded up ball of paper because that will actually make the crinkles get deeper. I will have to slowly undo all those kinks that I put in this piece of paper. And yeah, it may never look perfectly flat again, but it's a piece of paper again. I could write a note on the back, on the blank side, and I could put it under a book and get it flattened out again. So it still has value. It still has use. As a matter of fact, I've crumpled up paper for art projects because you needed it to be crumpled, because you needed it to take a different form. Have you ever crumpled up tissue paper to fill a bag? That crumpled paper has value. Notice when you get a purse at the store, they fill it with crumpled paper because they want you to see how the purse looks full. They want it to be merchandised in the best possible way. So this little old piece of paper, a few seconds ago, was a scrap, and then it was a cat toy. And now, well, it's a piece of paper again for whatever I want to do with it. Or I could just crumple it up and look for a cat. I'm not getting a cat. No matter how many friends I have that are cat ladies, I'm not getting a cat. I have too much going on in my life to have a cat. And my husband doesn't really like them. But that's another story. Either way, I have one houseplant. Oh, after my birthday, I now have 3 houseplants. It's a nightmare of maintenance. Oh, taking care of things. After you've been a mom, there are times you're like, I'm so done caring for anything. But new purpose, changing, re-envisioning, re-engaging, relearning who we are. That's what women of a certain age are doing all the time. When we're younger, we have nothing but expectations. We are a blank slate waiting to be written upon. We have dreams, we have aspirations, and we think anything can happen. When we reach a certain age, we know some things are off the table. I will probably never be an Olympian. It's just the way it is. Due to my height, I will probably never make the pages of Vogue. But again, you never know. Last year, Martha Stewart was on the cover of Swimsuit Illustrated, or Sports Illustrated, their swimsuit edition. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. And this year, it's a woman in her 50s, again, on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Now it's Sofia Vergara, so, she's gorgeous, whatever, but forget that. If I had a trainer and a chef, I'd probably look a lot better too. But I don't look bad. And I don't know if I want Sofia Vergara's life. Anyway, and I don't know if I want to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated. So Not only do I not think it's going to happen, I'm not sure I want it to happen. There are some things I don't want to do. I don't think I'll ever be Pope. I'm not Catholic, so that probably would have been a better place to start. And women are still working on their place in the Catholic Church. So there are some things that might never happen. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. But I also know there are some things that could still happen. There are people who got discovered by the film industry in their 60s and 70s and went on to win Oscars. And I can't think of the name right now, but I heard a story just the other day about a guy who that very thing happened. So it can happen. Again, I don't know if I want that, but knowing there's potential, knowing I still have things I haven't achieved yet, knowing what yet has to happen, which brings us to the third part. Remember, I said we're going to do Golden Girls, gravity, and taking flight. Now, obstacles and challenges. My favorite illustration for that is firing an arrow. Because to fire an arrow, you have to pull back with great force. It's harder than you'd imagine. If you've never shot an arrow, go try it, because you're going to discover it takes a lot more arm strength than you think to hold the bow and pull that string back. And that string is notched with the arrow. And until you're ready to let go, you're pulling back, you're pulling harder, and then you let it go and it takes flight. So sometimes these obstacles, these things in our lives that pull us backwards, or we have to overcome them, are actually preparing us to take flight. I want you to be like that arrow. Don't let that thing dragging you backwards keep you back. Let that be the impetus that takes you forward and launches you into the world, because there's so much we can do as wild, woolly women who survived the 80s, or if you're a little older than me, the 70s, or if you're a little younger than me, the 90s. All of us have survived very interesting, very turbulent times. And we are continuing to do so today. And the world needs the skills we learned to get through the anti-Vietnam War, to get through the Cold War, to get through what was that in the 80s when the world went crazy and Bonfire of the Vanities was the thing. I mean, just surviving those shoulder pads and the big hair. Oh my gosh, how exhausting was that? It looked really good, though. I still love that look. Give me a cinched in waist and some broad shoulder pads and big hair. I'm actually kind of happy. But that said, take those skills and use them for today's world. Now, just last night, I went to a showing of a relatively new movie called Lily. And it's the story of Lily Ledbetter and the Ledbetter Equal Pay Act that was signed into law in 2009. It's taken way too long for this story to be made into a movie, but I'm glad they did. Because one of the things we talked about, and trust me, the women who I saw this movie with, we needed to talk after this movie, because the issues of sexual harassment and pay inequity and women being told that they belonged in a certain place and that that was a man's world, and systematically told so. We've lived through that. The younger generation has an inkling, but they don't know how bad it was. And all of us need to see this movie. We need to drag our men to see this movie and help them understand how they can be better and how they can help and how we can start changing things. And I realize a lot of the men in our lives are ill-prepared to be supportive because of the messages and the conditioning they got. Heck, we have trouble with it. One of the younger women at our table, we went out for food after the movie because we had to talk. You know how girls got to talk. I drank tea that night. I don't always drink alcohol. I enjoyed my ginger tea. One of the girls, and this was a young one, said that she'd recently received advice when she was offered a job promotion and answered, I don't know that I'm ready. And her mentor took her aside and said, you need to be more like Chad. Chad is a mythical man who is very sure of himself. Chad would never say no to a promotion, even if he weren't qualified, because Chad is so confident in his swagger ass self that he thinks he can figure it out. How hard can it be? They offered it to a woman. How hard can it be? Ah, yeah, I said it. I said it out loud. And so the refrain for the night became, whether you got your Chad going or that's a Chad behavior. Because you know what? Chad's not entirely positive. But women need to learn how to be more secure in themselves and more assertive to get what we need to have happen. In response to that, in the discussion of the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act and what it went through to be enacted as a law, I reminded the ladies at the table of when women earned the right to vote. I shouldn't say earned. When the constitutional amendment was put in place to guarantee women the right to vote over 100 years ago. Just barely over 100 years ago, which is criminally wrong, but that's another discussion too. They didn't quite have enough votes to get that constitutional amendment passed. And the last senator to fold and step in and support it and tip the scales did it because he was called by his mother, who told him he had better vote for that constitutional amendment to give women the right to vote. So don't forget how much power we wield. And I hate to call it power because that sounds like bullying and it sounds kind of wrong to me. But maybe influence is a better word. But at the same time, if we aren't using our voices to let people know what's going on, to change things, go see Lilly. That movie about Lilly Ledbetter is so powerful. And you see what she faced and how she used her voice. And at first it seemed awfully lonely. And at first it felt like there was nobody in her corner. And boy, it looked like a lot of people were against her. And they were, because they wanted to protect the status quo. But that said, she did keep fighting. And slowly but surely, she found allies. And slowly but surely, they created change. And it was not without cost, but it happened. You and I have that same strength of Lilly Ledbetter in our heart. Every single one of us does. We just need to summon it to change the world. That is taking flight. And that is today's episode. Golden Girls, younger than you thought. And more powerful than you thought, because they were bringing up the subjects that we're still talking about today and with greater candor. Gravity. Got to defy gravity because you don't want the tits on the floor. Yeah, I said it. But you do need the gravity to develop your muscles. So like that arrow being pulled backwards, remember those challenges you have faced in your life have prepared you to be launched and do great things, whatever it might be. So I encourage you not only to live your best life, but to make change in the world and use your voice. Tell your stories. It's important. Until next week, have a wonderful week. Cheers to that. And I look forward to talking to you again soon. Oh, and if you agree with anything I've said or disagree, go to my webpage, wonderwendyandfriends.com. There are links there. You can talk to me. You can send me messages. You can let me know what you're thinking. What do you want to hear more about? What are we going to do in the future? I'm excited. Talk to you soon.
Like what you heard here today? Then we should be friends. I suggest you join my Facebook group. It's a good way to connect. We can have a conversation. Ask me questions, whatever you want to do. It is called the Wonderful Bucket List Life. That's Wonder-Full Bucket List Life. Be a bucket lister and join me on this adventure. Or you can go to my webpage, which is Wonder Wendy and Friends. Join the mailing list, learn about the book I wrote, adventures that are coming up in the future, and other podcasts. I look forward to talking to you soon, and stay hydrated. Have a great day.